Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to an all-new edition of Fanlight Zone Presents. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also the editor-in-chief here at FLZ. To my left, your right at home, you know him as one of our featured editors on New Comic Book Day, and also the host of 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show. Please give a warm welcome to Rich.
Yes, and we have a very exciting interview today that I'm very excited about, is because what most people know, because if you're watching us, you know that I'm a huge Spawn fan and a Spawn Universe fan. So this is like really an awesome affair that we're about to put on. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I'm going to enjoy doing this.
Oh my God, me too. Because if you're not familiar with what's going on in McFarlane Comics and the Spawn universe, May is going to be a major month for you to get on board with, because there's all new creative teams taking over the major franchises along with Al Simmons' Supernatural Squadron, because the Scorched 51 is going to have a new creative team taking over on May 27th. The FOC is May 4th. And the writer of that new run is we're fortunate enough to have him jump on the show with us. You know his work from Black Ritual, the Book of Nyx, Sam and Twitch Case Files, but you also might know him as the publishing coordinator for Todd McFarlane Comics and the editor-in-chief of the Spawn universe. Please give a warm welcome to Thomas Healy. Thomas, what is going on?
Hey guys, how you doing, my friends?
Very good, very good.
Very good. Right. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming through, because we are super excited to talk Spawn and what is going on there too, because when we got the press release about all the new lineups coming out, I mean, we were already fans to begin with, but to see who's coming over to the books is amazing, and to see that you are taking over the Scorched. So let's get into, I mean, you being the editor-in-chief, I'm kind of throwing a little curveball for my usual intro for this. How did you become involved with the Spawn universe and McFarlane Comics?
You know, at the time I was working in hospice care, as weird as that sounds. And then I took a little sabbatical from that, and I was just and then I ended up taking a part-time job at a local comic shop. My friend, who, if you've ever been to a Comic-Con where Todd's at, you see a girl with bright purple hair. She's like Todd's second in command, Shannon. She was moving from the role of publishing coordinator to kind of basically becoming his assistant. So she called me up and said, "Hey, do you want my job?" And that literally is and I know I've told that story, and I know people get angry because, again, it's kind of like, really? I was in the right place at the right time. Took over as publishing coordinator. After a little bit, I said, "I want to be editor." Todd said, "Okay." And then I was like, "Well, I'm going to be editor-in-chief then after another year or two." And he goes, "Tell you what, when we launch more books and we hire some more staff, you could be editor-in-chief." And then when we did, like right in the middle of COVID, we did the first expansion, which was to add King Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn, and Scorch to it. And he said, "If you can go through the entire year and get every issue out, we don't miss a deadline, we have no hiccups, I'll make you editor-in-chief." And then when Scorched 1 came out, he literally called me and he said, "Hey, you made a mistake in the front page of Scorched number 1. I said, "Oh man, really? What happened?" He goes, "You put the wrong title. You should have put editor-in-chief. Congratulations." And that's literally how he told me.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That's an awesome story. And the heck with anybody who got mad at you when you told them that, like, you know, listen, no matter how you get the job, as long as you're doing the job, it's great. And like, let's be honest, we all kind of like, and it sounds weird to say this in this way, we all kind of fall into things. And if that's the case, so be it, because amazing things have come out of it. So, I mean, I can't say that it was an accident, because the work is there, you know, that it's proven. So
yeah.
Like,
Todd is definitely not one to just continue to have an employee languish if they're not doing the things he wants done.
Sure.
So I feel very lucky that I was put in that position in the first place. But obviously, if you look back through the history of Spawn, there have been other series that have kind of run parallel to it, Sam and Twitch being a large one when Brian Michael Bendis was involved. But they never really had a large universal expansion. So I'm not saying that was all my idea. There's a lot of people involved in that, but just managing that and getting that going, and kind of helping to curate the creative teams, curate which characters were going to be getting their books. I feel like I was a big part of that. And I think Todd acknowledged that and made me editor-in-chief.
That's awesome. And like I said, you've done such great work and everything going on. And once again, my first, like, other than seeing your name on, inside the books as editor in chief on things, my first like taste of like your writing was when I was reviewing Black Ritual, the Book of Nyx. And now you're moving on and doing Scorch, starting with Scorch 51. So because we have you here for that, I kind of, before we went on, you were saying that we're doing some new things. So can you elaborate on what we can expect with the elevator pitch, if you will, with what's going to be going on with Scorch going forward?
Oh, absolutely. So following Scorch 50, which just got released, we're kind of going, this is going to be a really good jumping on point for fans. As long as you have a basic knowledge of a lot of these characters. She Spawn's still going to be running the team, but in the past, they've been fairly reactive to situations in the same vein as like the Avengers might be. Monster attacks the city, demons show up in a barbecue, and then they show up and try to fight them off. She Spawn's really like, they're not gaining any ground at this point. And in her mind, a little bit of that is kind of Spawn's intrusion as, well, I'm still the alpha, so you do what I tell you. So she kind of says, you know what, if you want me to do this, I have the same amount of training as you. In fact, if you remember, I'm the one that put the bullet in your head, Al. So I'm going to do my own thing. And we've seen her quite a bit leaning into her She Spawn powers, her Hellspawn powers. But people a lot of times forget she's got an entire backdrop of her military training, being a CIA operative, Black Ops, working for Win, being an assassin. So she's going to kind of garner a lot of those contacts that she's had and say, where can we as a team do the most good? Instead of waiting for a threat or a catastrophe to happen, we're going to be more proactive. And that also means shaping the team to the missions at hand. Not every mission needs medieval Spawn with a giant sword running into the fray. So picking and choosing who the team members are for that mission, and then executing that mission in the best way possible. I was always a really big fan of the old book Heroes for Hire from Marvel. Yep. And I liked the idea that it was kind of this, it was a lot of similar characters, but sometimes they rotated in and out of the book for a few issues, depending on what was needed. And I feel like that's a kind of an interesting direction. This, unfortunately, and I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, this unfortunately puts her at odds with a lot of people, including various world governments, who are going, hey, you can't just go there and do that. And she's going to be like, who's going to stop me? I'm here to save lives. And that brings her to some morally gray areas where sometimes you might have to make a decision of we can only save one group, who gets to save. And hopefully people read it and go, I like this take. I like this is interesting. I like that you're bringing in more characters from the Spawn universe that might have just been sitting and languishing in the background for a long time. And I get to play with a lot more characters, where if I was doing a book like King Spawn or Spawn, kind of got to deal with Spawn as the primary character for the most of that book. But it's Scorched. We can bring the characters that, I read the Spawning Ground emails. I get those emails. I see the posts online. I see the Reddits and the Facebook posts. I know that people want these characters. Like, where's so-and-so? Why have they not done anything with Ninja Spawn? We're going to do stuff with Ninja Spawn. And this is the book for that.
Awesome. That is so reassuring. I'm so excited now.
Thanks. Yeah. Like I say, I'm the more bloodletter, the better for me, like personally. So I granted,
I'm glad you said that. I'm really glad you said that because Tim, Joseph, and Christian did a phenomenal miniseries.
Yes.
And I really, really dug their stuff. And I'm really hoping that, we're in talks right now. And I'm really hoping that by New York Comic-Con, or even hopefully San Diego, we might be able to make some more announcements about the second series of both Bloodletter and Black Ritual. Nothing official yet. We're kind of figuring out logistics, time frame in the schedule, budgeting, and stuff like that. But those are creators I loved working with, and they created a character who I think really has a really strong place in the Spawn universe.
Awesome.
Yeah, if anybody hasn't read Bloodletter, you need to go check that out. That's a phenomenal series.
Yes.
And yes, we need more of that. And especially if there's any connection with the Scorched, I'm already sold on this. So this is just gonna be more, cherries on the sundae, so to speak, with this. Now, jumping into the writing aspect from your editor role for this, what do you think is the most challenging for you creatively with this team?
Honestly, the hardest thing I think for me personally, and this is not necessarily for every writer, is making sure that at least in my mind, I'm telling stories that have not either been told or other writers are planning to do. When you get someone, and I know Matthew was on here real recently talking about him picking up Spawn and King Spawn, it's great because he's segregated and he's just really focusing on those 2 books. And, we'll get on a call and I can be like, hey, this is what's going to be happening in Gunslinger. This is what Eric is going to be doing. This is what I'm going to do in Scorch. But for the most part, he just hears little tidbits, and then he just gets to dive into that little corner of the universe and really, really explore it. Where for me, I have to get on that call with him and hear everything about what he's doing for Spawn and King Spawn. Same thing with Erica. Same thing with Jimmy Palmiotti on Deadly Tales. A few miniseries that we're still working on the back, and try not to do the thing where you go, oh, that was such a great idea, and not realize I got that idea because Erica mentioned it. It didn't pop up naturally in my head. So really kind of siloing my writing so it doesn't pull from everybody else's, because there's so much really incredible talent coming on board right now. And we want to make sure all of the books are really fresh. That was one of the things really early on when we launched these new books. People are like, well, why do we need 2 Spawn books? We already have a Spawn. It's like, well, why do we need 8 Spider-Men or 4 Batman? It's because it's a popular character. And honestly, we have found creators that we think are going to tell interesting stories, and they can't all fit in one book. Yeah. So that's a big reason for it. So just making sure that my stuff is fresh and different and hopefully interesting to the fan base is my biggest challenge right now. Luckily, I have been immersed in the lore and read pretty much every single issue of a Spawn comic that has come out since 1992, including all the miniseries. So I may not remember everything off the top of my head, but I'm surrounded with a lot of people that I can kind of, hey, do you remember that one thing that happened the one time? What issue was that? And oh yeah, that was so-and-so, and I can go back. I'll give a shout out to Daniel Enriquez, who's the writer for The Curse of Shirley Johnson. Mm-hmm. He is a walking encyclopedia of Spawn knowledge. So sometimes if I really can't find, like, I know this thing happened, I'm remembering the scene, it was like 3 pages, that dude will know. So I pick his brain quite a bit.
Yeah, I like what you said there about the Spider-Man, because listen, I'm a Spawn fan, and we can't have too much Spawn. Like, who complains about that? It's like, especially since everything is in that universe, everything is so different. Like I'm saying, in the Spawn universe, like each title brings a little something different to the table. Each iteration, if you will, of a different Spawn is different. It's a completely different beast for the most part, even though it ties together in a lot of ways, but it's still different.
I mean, it just falls on the creators to really bring out the best of the character. So I mean, you could have 10 books, 20 books, whatever the case is, but you really have to make sure that your story stands out. And I really think with the lineups that we've had in the Spawn universe, they do. And I think that that's where it's been one of the biggest strengths over the years too. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I think I've been lucky that I've been able to get to write the characters that I am a fan of. I'm sure down the road, there's many, many creators, Scott Snyder, big name writers throughout the course of their careers, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, that have had to write characters that they go, all right, well, it's a gig.
Yeah.
I'll do the research. I'll read up on this character, and then I'll write, 6, 12, 18 issues. I've been very lucky that I've had the opportunity to write all of the characters, not all of them where I don't have any more that I want to write, but all of the ones that I have written have been characters that I'm a fan of. Sam and Twitch, more than anything, was a huge bucket list because I've always enjoyed those books coming from the Brian Michael Bendis era. And all of the other small minis that have come out like Udaku, I've always just been a huge fan of like True Detective and Law and Order SVU and Bosch and just writing all of those detective series. That was a goal. And then Nyx was another character that I was just like, hey, I have a personal interest in the occult, so I kind of want to fix this character and not just be, well, she's Wiccan, so therefore magic and witches and stuff like that. And Nat and I kind of had that really same goal, is bring a little bit of authenticity to this character and not just, brand her as, CW's, she's a Wiccan and therefore she does this stuff.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do that. So I've been really, really lucky. And She Spawn, Jessica Priest is a character that I really enjoy. So I came on and started my gig right as she was being introduced in Spawn 300 and 301. My first issue that I worked on was Spawn 303. So they had just brought in this character and made her She Spawn. So I've gotten to see that character grow, and hopefully we take her some interesting places.
Yeah, and like you just mentioned, there's so many great and robust characters. And speaking of milestones, we just had the 50-50-50 event, which was 50 issues of Scorched, 50 issues of Gunslinger Spawn, 50 issues of King Spawn, respectively. And what do you think is the biggest key ingredient to make that longevity happen in this current market?
You know, I've heard it say, Spawn's got a built-in fan base. People love what Todd did, and they love Spawn at the time. It was super edgy and really violent, and it came on in that early 90s era where there was a lot of churning of new ideas in comics. And you look at it, and I remember walking into the comic book shop and seeing Spawn #1 on the shelf, and the first thing we noticed was the Marvel and DC books, at least at the time, they were still using the newsprint for a lot of their books. So you open up Spawn, you open up Youngblood, you open up Witchblade, and it's bright, glossy paper with these vibrant colors. And then I remember we looked at the front cover and it was $1.95, and I was like, screw that. It pays $1.95 for a comic. Now we're lucky that we'd all love to go back to $1.95 comics.
Oh yes,
but he's had that fan base for so long, and Todd won't renumber. Todd's not going to reboot. There won't be a universal, multiversal reset. He's got the world record already. He's not going to want to lose that. So we have to focus on, okay, we can't just change it. We can't just put him in a new suit and say this is a new universe or whatever. So hopefully we do a good job, and there's times where I'm sure it's more successful than others, where we can bring in interesting creators from outside of the box and go, what's your idea? What do you want to do? And I think that was a big situation with Matthew Rosenberg, of Todd going, hey, I don't want you to tell a story similar to what I would already come up with. Otherwise, I'll write it and it'll be for free. So if I'm going to pay you, give me something different. And I've heard that enough, and I've heard him tell that to other writers, whether that be John Layman of Chew fame or Jimmy Palmiotti and Erica Schultz. So I've been there 8+ years now, so I've heard that enough. So when I went in with my pitch for this, along with some of the other people that were pitching Scorched ideas, Todd went, there you go, that's the one. Because a lot of people still want to kind of ape on the classic stuff. They're living in the nostalgia stuff, and that is great, and that's phenomenal for comics. Everyone loves a nice homage cover to a classic cover. But for the writing, and for the most part, Todd's looking for something new and different than what he was already doing. Yeah,
and I think especially to have the longevity, you have to do that. You have to kind of keep pushing forward and trying new things. Like I say, not to say that if the wheel is isn't broke, don't fix it, and so forth. But you have to really kind of think forward and go, okay, it's a different market, different fans, and you still want to try growing that fan base. So you got to take a risk every now and then. But I love the fact that he's not renumbering, because that is one thing that drives me absolutely crazy. Yeah. And to see though books, going into shops and talking about issues like a 50 or 100 or and so forth, like that's the stuff, like for my era, that's what I grew up with. So I love seeing that. But I also like seeing when stories evolve and become very modernized in that sense. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I mean, Spawn's place in the world, if you go through and look at the eras of Spawn, has changed quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Whether or not he's remembered, what he's living in the alley and homeless guy now, or he's being more soldier. For a long time, it wasn't even him, it was Jim Downing. So hopefully we're providing different, not versions of a character, but at least just different vibes for the book that fit what the readers want.
Yeah. I would say it's just like different evolutions of the character. Mm-hmm. The character seems to always evolve, and I think that's the other thing, that the cool part about we'll say the Spawn spinoffs is that every spinoff, every character seems to have their own vibe and their own evolution, and it's really cool because I guess that forced not renumbering and not going to be like, okay, we're just going to make Spawn in a different universe. The actual hey, this is a completely different character actually makes that more interesting, and where it ties into the greater story is what the binding is. And I think that you guys are doing that better than anybody, in my opinion.
Thank you, that's great to hear.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this then. I mean, obviously we talked about Spawn's been around since the 90s to now. What has been your personal favorite Spawn moment, either as a creator or as a fan?
So if we're going just through the Spawn book, that's a tough one. I grew up, so I have that nostalgia for the early stuff. Mm-hmm. The weird Billy Kincaid, the first overt kill arc. That was some fun. If we're talking about the current stuff or more modern recent stuff, I'm a huge fan of Jason Shawn Alexander, and I'm not somebody, as a writer, I'm not somebody that typically just follows artists from book to book. I know a lot of fans wherever so-and-so art is going to be there, wherever Greg Capullo is going to be, I'm going to read that book, or stuff like that. Jorge Jimenez, Javier Fernandez. Typically I do that with a lot of writers, but Jason Shawn Alexander his run was probably one of my favorites. I love his painterly style. It's gritty. It's just terrific looking. And then I would say my second very close would be Javi Fernandez's first dozen issues on King Spawn. Dealing with the fallout of the Billy Kincaid stuff, where he's come back, and just seeing Javi's take on Spawn and kind of really setting the tone for the modern stuff. Because more artists now, kind of, I don't want to say ape his style, but definitely take elements of how he drew Spawn and how he drew Spawn in the suit and use that a lot. And we use some of his art as examples for new people coming on board.
As it should. It's such good stuff. That's one of my personal favorites as well. Like, the art is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
That King Spawn run was just so good, and it really shines through. Getting back to Scorched here for a second, though, you mentioned that you're going to be bringing back a lot of like characters, and we're going to see some characters we probably haven't seen in a while. I don't want you to give any spoilers, but is there a breakout character that you got to use for your run on Scorched that you're like really psyched about?
Yeah, there's been actually a couple of characters that I was like, oh, and in fact, it was right before I started here. I have my Word doc open that has like all of, okay, here's my wish list of characters I get to that I'm hoping to get to use. Here's where I think a story element would fit that particular character. So yeah, being able to bring some, and I don't want to spoil anything. But there's a really great page at the end of issue 51. It's a nice double page spread that kind of gives the reader kind of a little bit of an idea of where we might be going with this book. And hopefully people can go, oh, I hope that's real. I hope this is real. I hope this isn't a tease. And I hope that's going to happen over here. So I without spoiling anything, again, I see all the Facebook posts and I see the Reddit posts. So I know some of the people that have been really on everybody's wish list. So I plan on doing that, as well as, again, a few of my pocket favorites.
Like I say, I can't wait to see this on May 27th. That's why everybody really needs to go out to the FOC and make sure it's locked up by then. Like I say, you can't wait. Go to the comic shops. May 4th, it's the final countdown. Make sure you get this ordered in for it. And obviously, you're talking about that double page spread. Alessandro Vitti's the artist on The Scorched. How has the creative process been so far?
Oh, it's been great. I've had a chance to look at his stuff for a while. And that is the problem. As the editor-in-chief, I get to see basically all this amazing art, and we're getting submissions from artists all over the world and colorists and inkers, and we just sit and look at it like, this is phenomenal, this is beautiful, but we only have so many books, and we really kind of reward, or try to reward, the artists for longevity. You go to some other companies and it's like every arc they're switching it up. New creative team, or even just the artist swapping them in and out every arc, or even every other issue in some cases. Whereas Todd's like, like, we grew up in the time where, like, if somebody did 25, 30, 40, or 50 issues in a run, like, that was epic. That was important. That was important to comics. This person really put their mark on it. So when you've got artists like Carlo Barberi, who have been here since issue 30, I think 7 or 8. I could be wrong on that, but been here for quite some time. It's great. Brett Booth doing huge runs on both Gunslinger and Spawn. So we don't necessarily kind of like kick an artist to the side so we can get the new hotness to come on. We let him do it. So Alessandro was somebody that we just had his portfolio, and we had been wanting to work with him for a very long time. And then after we decided what we were doing for the 50-50-50 thing, we were like, well, why don't we just swap out some of these teams? And Steven Segovia, also been here since the launch of the new books, was on issue 1 of Scorched and has been there, doesn't complain, doesn't turn in pages late. I love his stuff. He's great to work with. So we kind of went, you know what? It's Steven's turn. He gets to do Spawn. So at that point in time, I immediately went through all of my email folders of like, okay, who do we have that are these just really, we know right away. We don't even need to give them tryout pages. We know they're going to fit. And I kind of wanted just a slightly grittier take on the Scorched book. Steven has that really kind of classic Marvel DC house style, which I think works for books like Spawn, because you get to draw the beautiful cape and the chains and it just looks glorious. But for Jessica and her team, I wanted it to be a little more gritty. Not that they're superheroes, more like a military strike force, Black Ops team. in costume, but still, they're a little more on the violent side, which is why somebody like Thomas Knocklick works so well for Kingspawn, because again, he's got that more gritty. So Alessandro is, to me, was just like this perfect balance of classic comic book style, but still has that grit to it, that kind of really good facial expressions, really good emotions. So I sent Todd, I knew he was my pick. And I sent Todd a list of 5 people. And I said, hey, here's 5 people we've spoken to. They're all ready to jump on board if you want. Here it is. And I put him number 2 on the list. And I said, what do you think? And that night, Todd is like, I really like this Alessandro guy. I'm like, good, because he's who I wanted. The other 4 were great too. And we'll get to them hopefully someday. But Todd agreed with me. And he was our guy.
It's super dope that you guys have the longevity that you do and like keeping people on. And that's like you said, it's not a knock on anybody else, but it's like, that's the cool thing. Like you're used to seeing artists like change in and out, but then now you have established guys and like their work speaks for itself. And I think that really probably goes with like how much they put into, their work, because it's like, you're taking that, like, that's something that, you own, you've created, like in a way you're like, this is something I can be proud of.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Like even hearing you say like, oh, now it's time for him to move on and do Spawn. It's like almost like a promotion in a way. And you can, you see like, and we move the pieces moving around, and then other people are just like, oh, I can go and do this other thing. This is pretty cool. I just think that that's really like cool, because like I said, you don't see that a lot in a lot of the publishers. Like I said, no shot at anybody else, but,
sure, but yeah,
it's just a super cool thing to see.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, everyone's they have to run their business the way it is. You just put a book that has an Image logo on it. You kind of expect that, because people are either going to be coming to Image with their own creator-owned stuff, meaning that even if there's a year between minis, Fiona and Brian are going to come back to Saga. There's not going to be a fill-in arc with, a random guy or a random girl artist. That's their book. Kyle Higgins and Ryan are going to see that on the Massiveverse stuff. So even though there's stuff, and then you've got, Ryan Otley, you've got, long-term Invincible that takes some breaks but comes back. So for Image, I feel like it is more like that than any other company, because they're not just trying to churn out stuff. They're not just necessarily doing these arcs so they have movie fodder. It's just, they're just trying to get books out all the time. And if it's easier to just swap in these pieces, whereas Todd's like, hey, I want to reward the guys. Like, I appreciate the loyalty, the time, the blood, the sweat that they're putting on these pages. Because we're grinding, going like, hey, I don't have a fill-in arc for you, man. Like, if you need to do Vacation, cool, let me know. But we got to figure out a way to do it. And certainly there's the occasional fill-in issue, but for the most part, like, we don't pull people off for full arcs, and then we just let them go. And if they're done, cool. And if they want to keep going, like Brett, he's like, I'll keep going. I'll do 10 more issues for you. Which, I mean, he's an animal. We let him do it.
Hey, by the more Brett, the better. Like, as an old school Backlash fan, like I'm all in for
Heck
his
yeah.
artwork.
That was Backlash is one of my favorite characters of all time. I've told Todd this, like when we first started working together. I was like, you realize like Spawn wasn't my Image book. It was Wildstorm. It's all the Wildstorm stuff. Like, that's what I was into. That and Wetworks. I loved Wilson's Wetworks.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, I will not fanboy out. I promise I will not fanboy out. I was Team Wildstorm like all day. Gen 13, Deviants. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole
100%. So when we were looking for a new Spawn artist, I think it was on comicbook.com that Brett had just finished his run on Flash. And again, arguably one of the great modern Flash artists of all time. And I said, hey, we can go a little crazy here. What about Brett Booth? And Todd's response was, I mean, that kid that used to work for Jim Lee? Like, that's how he knew Brett Booth. He was the young guy that Jim brought on into the studio. And I was like, well, that kid is now a very, very famous DC artist, amongst other things. So he reached out and he was like, sure. And Todd's like, yeah, well, you can do whatever you want, which is why we have dinosaurs in the Spawn books, because Brett likes to draw dinosaurs. So.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
And I'm glad we're talking a little bit about, especially about Image, because like here at Fanlay Zone, we do love to like, and I mean, personally me, because I cover a lot of indie books. I love independent comics, and as a whole we do. And like, there is I mean, you could say, I mean, I think it's not hyperbolic at all to say without Image, there wouldn't be the independent move that we have now, and especially a flagship like Spawn. I mean, we're almost 400 issues in for Spawn. That is a flagship that has been firmly, planted. And obviously, being from that world and doing independent comics and working where you do, what is your take right now? Because as we look at it, we look at this boom period of independent comics, whether it be through Kickstarter or Image putting out a lot of great things, or all these other small publisher houses. What is like the temp in the room for you for independent comics right now?
Oh, personally, that's my jam. That's what I like. Like I said before, I always, for the most part, followed a lot of writers. So I was of that generation that was really excited when like Phonogram by Kieran Gillen came out, and Matt Fraction's Five Fists of Science. I liked those weird, and then earlier than that, David Lapham stuff and Ted McKeever, Plastic Forks and stuff like that. So I liked a lot of the indie stuff. So that was always super exciting to get a call to go like, hey, do you want to work at, not at Image, but with Image and be part of it? Because that's my pull list. Not saying just Image, but just indie books in general. I have my fans. I always read. I like Captain America. I always read my Captain America and my Daredevil. Same thing in Marvel. At DC, I will buy any book that Detective Chimp is in because he's like my favorite. I got a Detective Chimp piece right there.
That's awesome.
So indie books are definitely my jam, and so trying to keep the Spawn universe like that, it's tough because again, it's been around for 36 years. It is a creator owned book, but I don't know that we would classify it as indie, but I like to think that some of our side projects really have that feel. Bloodletter. That could be, that easily could have just been an Image title that had nothing to do with Spawn. Easily. Misery was another one. I just taking that character of Wanda's daughter and showing the trauma that she did. I thought that had a really cool indie feel. So indie, I feel like, is still kind of in our hearts within the TMP group.
Yeah, I would say, but I mean, yes, I agree. Like, there's a lot of ways you can be like, even like Image, like you could look at them like as the third of the big three. Although, like I said, they still have all of these independent creator-owned things going on, and it's still why I consider very indie. But I think that a lot of like, if you look at a lot of like independent creators, I think that they look at Spawn as like that is the gold standard. Like that is the proof that you can create your own thing, and it can last, and it can become, as let's be honest, Spawn deserves to be up there with Batman and Superman as like those big names that we look at, because it really is. I mean, at this point in juncture, it is a cultural machine in its own. And I think that is cool, that's a beacon to have. Like if you're going into something and you're an indie creator and you're like, hey, I could create something that could last for 400 issues. And I think that's what that shiny beacon. And I think that's where its real importance is. Not just like, granted, as a fan, I think the importance is it's an amazing series and it's spawned, pun intended, it spawned off a bunch of other amazing series. And to your point with you guys doing some indie stuff, I got to throw it out there. Last year, you guys put out I Saw Santa, and that was a fantastic. And it really has very little to do with the Spawn universe. I mean, we get Sam and Twitch in it. You get a little bit appearance by the big guy, if you will. But it's kind of like this side horror story, which is really, really cool. If you haven't checked that out, there's another one you should pick up at the shops. Just throwing it out. There's 2 issues. It's great. But so I think you guys, especially over there, are doing an amazing job. Still keeping it. Yes, it's a little bigger, but it's still indie.
It's still the indie feel. Like that's the one thing whenever you pick up a book, like you can definitely tell like the passion is still there, and it doesn't feel like it's not like it's going to be kind of weird saying it, but it's not like a mainstream book. Like it still has that indie feel to it where like anything is possible, anything can happen. It's not something that they're like, oh, well, Spawn will just get out this way. It's just one of those, with any of the titles, there's really that unpredictability factor, which I think succeeds so much more on the indies than it does for the big two.
Yeah. And
I think like that's what resonates in these pages. And I'm sure we're going to see with the Scorch coming up, that's going to be a staple of that.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Again, we try. We have our mantra in with myself and then my team, which Yvette is who's the publishing coordinator now, and our production artists, Ryan and Zabriel and Amani. We say it all the time. It's like, we just want to make cool shit. Like that's our goal. The worst part of my job is dealing with the administrative stuff. I just want to sit and talk about comics or where we're going and talk to the creators. Those are the meetings I love. You know, people, I see people in big companies arguing all the time, like Zoom is the worst thing that ever came out of COVID, because now I've got to sit on these meetings with all of these people and I don't want to. And I get excited when I get a text from Jimmy Palmiotti. Hey, can we talk about something? I want to run this by you. Heck yeah. Let's talk about comic books. That's what I get excited about. I want to be a creative driving force within the Spawn universe as much as I can. Obviously, Todd will always be overseeing everything. But hopefully I get to voice my ideas. I get to voice my opinions, and even points where I get to voice my concerns. And he goes, "Oh, okay, I get your point. All right, sure. Let's not do it, or let's do it." And just feel like I'm a part of that. And that's to me the most exciting part of my job.
That's awesome. That's super sweet. And it's kind of like when you hear the stories, and like even like when we talk to Matthew Rosenberg, just to hear how cool Todd McFarlane is about like the things that's going on, and like in the voices. I think that's super cool, because you don't always hear that. Usually, you know, people who are like want to be in control and have their hand and everything, to be like, hey, listen, go out there and create it and bring something to me. That's just dope. And that, once again, that goes with that indie feel.
Yeah. I mean, we have, I think the biggest for writers, at least, the biggest thing that we're looking at isn't, as weird as this sounds, isn't what their story is. It's their dialogue. Todd has in his head. He knows how the characters should sound. He knows the dialogue. It shouldn't sound monologue-y, and he calls it superhero-y. There's obviously a place for it, because superhero comics are still huge. But in his mind, and now in mine, it's like, I get it now. I get where you're going. They look like this, and they look like extraordinary beings, but the world they live in should be very close to ours. So we use a lot of movies as examples to be like, hey, this dialogue of this movie, picture this with, say, the Scorched. And the one I like the most that I use a lot is because I enjoy the movie is Sicario. It's a great movie, but let's be honest, you know, Emily Blunt, Alejandro Benicio del Toro's character, Josh Brolin, they could be superheroes for what they do, but they're not. They're just soldiers or FBI agents. So when they're in the tunnels, at the scene at the end with Alejandro, when he's at the cartel leader's house, he doesn't monologue about what you did to my family. He's just there, and you know why he's there, and he doesn't have to say a whole lot in that scene, and it's terrifying. And so when you've got the gunslinger, you know, when we brought that character kind of out to the forefront and had him in his own series, there was a little bit of like pullback. He doesn't quip. He's not, you know, Two Gun Kid. You know, he's not going to quip. He's like the outlaw Josie Wales. He's the man with no name. He's from Fistful of Dollars. Like, if he's talking, oof, that's a bad thing, because he's telling you you're about to die. So we don't, he doesn't over talk. He doesn't kind of, again, exude a lot of like jibber jabber. He's just a force, kind of like the Punisher. I feel like the live action has really gotten him good. I think John Barenthal's a phenomenal Punisher actor. I think it just nails it. So finding those voices for all the characters that are correct for our universe is really helpful for those writers. And we use a lot of movies to kind of showcase that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So a couple more questions before we let you get out of here. Obviously, being the EIC, you've worked with a lot of characters in the Spawn universe. Which has been your favorite to work on, and why?
So I mentioned before that Sam and Twitch was like my most excited book to work on, but I loved working on Nyx. Nyx has been my favorite character to write by far, because again, going back and you read through it, she shows up a ton, doesn't necessarily do a whole lot. And so Nat and I kind of really had that opportunity to kind of really shape her voice of where she is as we are approaching the present day continuity. Because that first arc takes place in the past. It takes place right after issue 184, which is where the last place we saw her. And we know, if you've read any of the Spawn universe, she shows back up in issue 300 and very quickly gets shot in the head and killed. So what we wanted to do, and what our pitch to Todd was we want to do 3 7-part miniseries, each one doing a small time jump that just shows where was she and what has she been doing between 184 and 300. So when she shows up in 300, she's basically like, I figured it out. And she's got this giant grimoire that she's written. Well, if you couldn't put it together, that's the Book of Nyx. That was the whole point of our series. So we're going to find out. And then how did she meet Jessica? And why was Jessica upset that she died? Like, that has not been explained yet. We know why. we're getting there. So our goal is to do these 3 miniseries, with the last one bringing her up to that moment prior to 300. And then hopefully, if those do well, that we can go hat in hand to the Todd father and go, can we do an ongoing of her in the present day universe? Because that's what we've been leading up to. We want to bring her into the present day.
Oh, that's really exciting. I really dug the Black Ritual book of Nick's. It was such a great series. Not just saying, like, it was one of those, I've talked about this before. It was one of those that when I was reviewing it, I was like, you get excited when you see it like come across, like, ooh, I get to do this week. Like there's certain books, and that was one of them while I was going on, because I just thought it was just really, really cool. And once again, like you were saying before, it's continuity, and it's inside of the story of Spawn, but it is still separate. Like it still has its own feel to it. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm reading a Spawn book. And I think that was really cool.
Yeah. And that was, I was hoping. I didn't want it to just be a Spawn book with a female character. We really wanted to show a different side of the universe. And then it was our way of going, hey, we get to explain how magic works. Because yeah, we've seen hell power and we've seen heaven, divine power, but this is magic. This is different. Humans are manipulating this energy force. So it's going to be very different. And we got to play with that and kind of establish what those rules will be going forward, to the point where, because I know you're both fans of Bloodletter, Tim and Joseph and I, we had a lot of conversations, because obviously that's a character that uses magic as well. So I was like, hey, these are running congruently, totally coincidence, but we need to make sure we're on the same page. And this is how I've started establishing this in the universe. So they were able to go, cool, like that doesn't break any of our stuff. That's how we'll do it as well. And they just came up with their own phenomenal way of telling that story.
Sweet, that's so cool. I'm gonna have a fun question here. We're gonna mix it up, and I understand that we've seen Spawn in different universes, but we're just gonna take you as a writer, and you don't have to use Spawn. I would prefer using the team from Scorched. You can pick any character that you want. If you could cross over any of the characters that you're writing with any universe, IPs be damned, you don't have to worry about licensing and copyrights agreements. Who would you choose and why?
I think a really, really interesting one would be Haunt and Daredevil.
Ooh.
With Haunt being, with Daniel being a Catholic priest, I think there's a lot of sensibilities that are similar. Like he got pushed into a really, really, we know Haunt's killed. We know that because, he ended up working for the agency. So he was basically just like a CIA operative, assassin. He's had to kill quite a bit. But I think their conversation and I think their drives of why they do what they do would be very similar. And I think even more so than having Daredevil chatting with Haunt, I think Matt chatting with Daniel would be really, really interesting. Having them hanging out at Josie's bar.
Yeah.
And just talking about their lives and how in their heads God has been pushing them to do this. To me, I think that would be a really interesting story. Everyone wants, Spawn and Spider-Man. I get that. I'll let Todd deal with that.
Yeah,
he can deal with that. But I'll take Matt and Daredevil. Haunt and Daredevil.
That's cool. I would love to see that. And it kind of like in the interesting part, like when you're saying about like the killing and no killing, is that they just did the Punisher and Daredevil book, and so you got to see the dynamic of the no killing and killing philosophy. So like, but take that off the table and you go with the God portion and the religious portion of it between the two. I think that's really like that would be the real selling point. Like that's really cool.
Yeah. That'd be an amazing point. But what's going to be an even more amazing point, maybe I'm just being a little biased, the Scorched 51. So we cannot stress this enough. Get to your comic shops. The FOC is May 4th. Make sure you get this book lined up, and make sure you're watching what's going on with Todd McFarlane Comics, because the Spawn universe is exploding right now. And if you're looking for a brand new universe to jump in, like if you haven't checked that out in a while, this is the perfect time to get in. And if you've been a long-time reader, you're going to be rewarded for your patience, because there's a lot of cool things coming out and you don't want to miss it. Thomas, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today. We definitely have to have you back on soon and recap what's going on in the Scorched. And
gentlemen, this has been great. You call, I'll answer. You just let me know. I have a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll be chatting up after these issues drop. Trust me, because like I say, we want everybody here at Fanlight Zone to go out and go get these books and definitely interact with us about it too. Because we're not just saying this as normal fans or reviewers, should we say? We're doing this as fans. See, you can definitely tell I'm excited, because when I mess up the outro, that is a true sign I'm amped up for what's going on here. You should have the same energy. On behalf of Rich and myself, thank you again for checking out another edition of Fanlight Zone Presents. We'll see you next time.
It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. 'Cause anyone who's worth a damn be worth way more than a picture could ever show. You could find the right light, find the right angle, and never find your soul. And it can feel like a losing battle, and this plot is full of holes. This modern way of finding love just makes me feel so alone. And I can't be the only one sick of staring at my phone. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Don't know that I believe in the old time fable. Everyone has just one true love. All I know is you're across this table, and you're all I'm thinking of. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Talk to me. Talk to me. It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know.